Hi, I'm Jules Suzdaltsev with Seeker Daily, and we're here on day 3 of the Republican National Convention in Cleveland, Ohio. Right now, we're in the YouTube studios, and I'm here with Francesca from AJ+, John from the Young Turks, and Nadeska from Complex News. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Sure.
Anytime.
Thanks for having me.
So, yesterday, Trump got the number of votes he needed to secure the nomination, which I think none of us have expected, a year ago, let's say. So I think part of the reason that people are saying he's grown so much in popularity is that he has a cult of personality. Now, if you don't know what a cult of personality is, it's when a person uses mass media to build up their image to a heroic level where their flaws are ignored and their virtues are hugely exemplified. One of the first times that this has happened, that in recent memory, or not so recent, is the 1960 debate between Nixon and Kennedy. I think we have a picture from that to show you to illustrate exactly how that looks. So, Nixon looks...
Just wiping the blood away from him.
he doesn't look good. It's actually right after this debate, Nixon's mom called him and asked him if he was sick. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. On the other side, you have Kennedy, who looks amazing. Just a beautiful man.
That's
running
actually
for president.
Nixon's actual skin color at that point.
It
didn't come off well on camera.
But so, when you look at a picture like that, it sort of seems like the difference between the two is not about politics. It's about really how well they're presented. And that's such a huge part of a cult of personality that I think is, translated through the last 50, 60 years since the invention of since television became the mainstream for politics. Is there anybody else you guys can throw out who feels like that?
Wasn't that the first televised presidential debate?
It was.
I mean, that was the other thing that, for the first time, instead of radio debates, we're actually seeing them and basically judging them on how tall they are, what tie they're wearing.
Body language.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not totally true, but there was a study that came out that said people who listened to the debate on the radio thought that Nixon won, and people who watched on TV thought that Kennedy won.
Right, I heard that.
And that, that was almost the launch of this sort of ability to build a personality through the media.
Yep.
One of the things that I think is interesting about Trump as the figurehead of a cult of personality is that he's definitely a new version of it. I mean, obviously, if you're talking about using mass media to build up a person and create an image of who you want them to think they are, whether they're actually anything like that, heading up a reality show for a number of years is that's pretty big. And then also, he's so different than people like the leaders of North Korea, or Stalin, for instance, where they'll attribute very specific qualities and characteristics to them, like he has never bowled anything other than 300, or he goes every month and he gives presents to the townsfolk, which they used to say about Stalin. Whereas with Trump, it's like he's rich and he wins. And we can mock his physical appearance and all of that. There's not actual life experience that makes him rise up above other people. It's just this general sense of he succeeded and he's saying the stuff I want to say, but people call me racist.
I mean, I almost think that that's a hallmark in and of itself of somebody with a cult of personality, where the details don't matter as long as they've built themselves up to be something that people want to be a part of.
Right.
When George W. Bush was running for office, I think one of the most common things said was, I'd like to have a beer with him. That's not a political position, but that's become what we look for in a president.
Right.
It's also pretty messed up since he was a recovering alcoholic.
That's also incredibly messed up.
But to your point, Jules, charm is always an important thing for any facet of life. Charm can get you a lot of places if you don't have talent, right? And so for Trump, when I think of well-loved presidents like Kennedy and Bill Clinton and Obama, I think of them as being very charismatic and charming. Trump doesn't have charm, but something is still really working out for him, right? So maybe he's just being loud and not necessarily charming.
Can I just say that this entire conversation, it's all very meta, and it kind of makes me want to vomit in my mouth a little bit, because really it's the media also that's been so, what is it about that racist? So to me, it's I think the media really has played into it, and it's being able to. Trump loves to bash us, by the way, people in the media, anyone who's covering him, and at the same time, we, and I would argue much more mainstream networks, have made him. And it was funny. I mean, listen, the head of CBS, right, Les Moonves, said about Trump, it might be bad for America, but it's damn good for CBS. Now, when you have the head of CBS, a major network, saying that, like, what is the role of the media to actually pull back that cult of personality and say, slow down, we need to actually focus on the issues here.
Yeah.
We saw the same thing that happened, in the UK in terms of the Brexit vote. It was like, oh, we just want to follow this. We're getting ratings. And then, wait a minute, we forgot to inform our viewers. Oopsies, you know?
Yeah.
That's almost, I think, it's almost like the media is used more as a tool than I think that the media trying not to cover certain subjects. I mean, one thing about Trump that is absolutely clear is that he's really, really good at getting media attention, and that's something he's doing intentionally. It's not so much that, the media is chasing after him, waiting for him to, stumble or say something crazy. He knows that that's why they're following him, so that's what he does. It's feeding the beast.
I think there's a bit of that, though. We criticized on TOIT how often, like, Bernie Sanders would win a couple of primary elections, and that night, you'd flip to MSNBC, and instead of seeing Bernie speaking on the night of his victories, you'd see an empty Trump podium.
Yeah.
Because they figured, oh, that'll draw in more people. Literally just a block of wood will draw in more people. But I will say, though, about the cults of personality, it's a natural outgrowth of the fact that we have celebrity worship and hero worship. We worship our founding fathers. We worship our literal fathers and mothers. And we do all that, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like, there's JFK. Reagan, I guess. I mean, these are guys that had cults of personality, but they also had policies, they had platforms, they had things they wanted to accomplish. They were relatively intellectual men, maybe not Reagan so much. But Trump just has the cult of personality and a wall, and that's basically it. And it's amazing to see you get this far without even, like Stalin wanted to collectivize, and he wanted to do all this crazy shit. He had actual policies.
I also think it's safe. I mean, I'm sorry, but, it is safe to cover this just a knee-jerk response or some kind of crazy response. Oh my gosh, what did he say about Mexicans, Muslims, this, that? Of course you should cover it. Of course, you shouldn't let it go. But it's so much safer to cover a candidate like Trump, watch what I'm going to say, than to actually talk about the issues and to talk about single-payer healthcare and to talk about. It's so funny because Bernie was always like, "Oh yeah, this crazy loon wants a single-payer healthcare. That's never going to happen." Trump wants to build a wall of Mexicans. How's he going to do that? Where's he going to find all the cement? We must talk. It's just like, are you kidding me? And you see, it sells so much more to just cover the personality, cover the family, cover Melania. Rather than actually covering the issues. That's where things get dangerous.
But isn't it a reflection of just the state of America right now and social media? If Trump was running for president before the age of social media, would his impact have been the same? We're in a generation where we worship people on social media who don't do much but take selfies sometimes. And I'm not saying that everyone on social media is like that, but that is where our culture is. Hard work doesn't necessarily chalk up to the same success that it did years ago. And I feel like that's why we are close to electing a man who is a social reality TV star.
It's a slippery slope, right? Because you're like, oh man, if Trump now, then Kardashian next. Like, what if she wants to run for office?
You just spoke that into existence. I want you to know that.
The inception.
But it's almost because, and I hate to say this, but politics is really boring. And, what Trump is doing is, I again hate to say it, but so exciting.
See, I've said the entire time, I've been one of the biggest Trump haters in the country. I don't find it exciting. I find it to be incredibly repetitive. Even inside of paragraphs, he repeats himself so often. I think the only reason many people out there watching find it to be exciting is because of how boring other politicians are.
Really, I think that's it. I mean, if you look at the people who are trying to be the nominee on the Republican side, a lot of people are saying that if there had been one, reasonable, level-headed person, then, he would have blown Trump out of the water. But that didn't happen.
Yeah.
It was...
I think Jon Stewart said something that really resonated with me recently. He said, if basically Trump showed all these politicians, right, left, Democrat, Republican, that he could just out-demagogue them. He could just speak louder than them, be more extreme than them, and that's what happens when you don't have actual policy or actual leadership. You get out-demagogued. You get demagogued. And so how as we as citizens, as voters, equip ourselves against this demagoguery? Because it's scary. It really is. And I think it's not funny anymore, right? And I think especially if you're Muslim, if you are Mexican, these are not just words. I mean, Black Lives Matter protesters were brutalized and have been brutalized. Immigrants have been brutalized because verbatim, Donald Trump wants you to go. this is for Donald Trump.
Or says,
Trump
knock
is right
the hell
about
out
you.
of them. I'll pay your legal fees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
But I mean, that's almost I think the saddest thing is, in spite of all that, he's still, like you're saying, the media is continuing to cover him. It
wrong.
almost feels like a self fulfilling cycle.
Yeah.
It's a self-running machine.
Well, also, though, I mean, we have to acknowledge in all cults of personality, the stuff that rises to that level, the danger is that the leader is inoculated against criticism for the most part. Dissenting voices are drowned out. That's the danger. But not all cults of personality are built in the same way. Like, we've had Obama, who had one.
course.
I was a devotee of it since 2004. Even Bernie Sanders, to some extent, has a cult of personality, and so does Trump, but they're not built on the same thing. I mean, Obama had posters that said hope and
Right.
change. It was positive feelings about
right.
how we can improve the world. We can take ourselves out of these unnecessary wars, stop killing civilians. Those are positive things. Trump has a cult of personality, but it ain't positive.
No. But
And-
the thing is that's not even necessarily a factor of. I mean, like you said, it's Stalin had a cult of personality, and I've heard a lot of comparisons between Trump and Silvio Berlusconi, who they both came out of money and aren't beholden to anyone. Both say pretty crazy things, do pretty crazy things.
Yeah.
Mussolini also, another Italian.
Mussolini, another
who
Italian.
Trump adores. And Mussolini had he loved to put on a big show. We were looking at old newsreels during that time, right? And the newscaster was like, one thing about Mussolini, he knows how to put on a good show. And there he is like goose stepping, and it's like,
Yeah.
and then it's like, some people think Mussolini will be less dangerous in office, or this is about Hitler. So what I'm saying is demagogues and authoritarians
That
and
sounds like
cult of
Trump.
personalities, right, throughout time
Yeah.
have always been said, well, and when you talk to Trump supporters, they say the same thing. He doesn't mean it. I know he said those things about women. He doesn't mean it. He does, and because somehow, I think as John, you said, there's a hypnosis where it's like, somehow people think they know him. They think they see his heart. And he doesn't mean it.
You know what's incredible about that is there's a psychological term called parasocial interaction, which is where it's a one-directional interaction, so something like a person watching a TV. So, you only get the host or guest, whatever, talking to you. But by using certain cues, by watching long enough, it begins to feel like a two-way interaction. You begin to feel like you can identify and associate with the people on screen.
Right.
And that kind of psychological concept builds a relationship in your brain where, you'll watch something and you'll watch Trump and, some people will say, oh, I get him. I know him. I almost feel like, I would be hanging out with him now.
Right.
That's what it
I think
feels
that's
like.
what's confusing to me, because I think we can look at a president like Obama, and a lot of young black kids can look at him and be like, oh, he's just like me. He loves basketball. He loves hip hop. He hangs out with Jay-Z. Maybe I can grow up to be like him. What does the common American see, what the average American see that they have in common with Donald Trump? He's just a really, really rich man who's getting richer and richer by the second. I just don't see what it is that they connect with, unfortunately.
So,
Well, and especially was born rich, was handed $200 million.
It's not like he worked his way up, so there's no connection there.
His son, who spoke last night, was given a winery to run, but this is a guy that's speaking for the common man.
gosh, why
At
can't he
least
just go run
Obama
the
did
winery?
start from the bottom,
Exactly.
so you can say, well, look, he started where I was, and
Yeah.
look where he ended up. Trump
Yeah.
was given wealth beyond imagination.
right. I was talking to this one woman at the GOP California convention, and, she said something that I think maybe some women, it resonates with them, which is like, he's a big, strong man. He's gonna.
She said those words.
I think he's gonna take care of us. He's big
my.
and he's strong. And it was like, honey, don't give away your power like that. But I mean, she was an older woman,
Sure.
and it's just like he's just a big, strong man who's gonna take care of us
I also think
and his corporate buddies. Like,
to what John
Tiny
said,
hands.
the cult of personality, I think one of the most interesting things about it is it has to live in that duality, where on the one hand, you're a hero-worshipped figure, on the other hand, you relate to the common man.
Yeah.
And there are so many factors that go into that it's I mean, clearly the people that we've seen that are like that, candidates that we've seen that are like that, do fulfill that role. It is almost a prerequisite, but getting to it it's clearly a false narrative. You can't really be both. You can't identify with the common man and own a winery.
What-
but this. let's just talk about Bernie Sanders. Honestly, like this is where you got to hand it to Bernie. I mean, the dude created a cult of personality around his anti-cult of personality. He never wanted to talk about never wanted to talk about his personal life. Never wanted to sort of, banter with people. He was about the issues, and yet people found a way to worship this, crazed-haired old, Jewy grandpa that like is like your like lovey Jewish grandpa. And I was like, man, and that's amazing to me. He's not sexy. You didn't want to put him on TV. You didn't want to.
Well, and with him, I think he benefited from the fact that the people who were so attracted to Obama, like I felt like Obama was one thing during the campaign, and he's been a fine president, but he wasn't what I thought he was going to be at the time. So all of those hopes and expectations were waiting for another person to fill them.
Yeah.
And so what worries me about Trump is if he doesn't become president, all of those people have now been activated, the ones who love Trump. And there might be another politician who in 4 or 8 years slides into that spot.
What could be worse?
And that's horrifying. But one other thing you said about relating to the common man, I was doing research for this talk, and I found it so interesting reading about Stalin in particular, because the media would always focus at the time about the fact that he would correspond via letter with peasants. And he would literally give presents and stuff like that. He would talk to them directly. And what does Trump do? Trump retweets any moron who sends a tweet to him. And for that person, it says, oh, he touched me, he blessed me by putting his palm on my head.
Yeah, and it also
and
gives him an excuse to back away from the horrendous things. Well, I didn't say it. One of my supporters did it, and I just retweeted it. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
It's an easy cop-out for him as well.
Amazing.
Well, I think there's also this idea that actors and reality TV stars, have this higher level of access to build a cult of personality. I mean, Reagan, Schwarzenegger, Trump, it's very seemingly easier to bridge that gap when you already have the audience.
Right.
Imagine if The Rock ever runs for president.
I would definitely
trouble.
vote for The Rock. No question.
I would totally vote for The Rock.
I'm endorsing The Rock right now.
Yes, please.
That would be amazing. And see, I have no idea how he would do as president, but I genuinely, in my heart, I love The Rock. I
You
would
just like him. And people feel that way about Trump,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think what's interesting about this election itself is it really may come down to, do I like this person and do I not? And Trump, what his base is saying is, I really, really like him. Whereas what Hillary's base is saying is, I really want to like her, and it's a difficult.
It's rough.
It's a difficult thing to overcome. Is when obviously there's the Bernie Bros who are haven't decided which direction they're going to go. Especially leaving the Bernie cult of personality. And Hillary's is, I think, a lot less strong, even though she's been around for so long.
She just doesn't even sound like she believes what she's saying. I wish, and I'm interested to see, come DNC, like if she can give a speech where I actually believe what she's saying. And I don't say that as an insult. I'm just being kind of objectively. I mean, she doesn't sound like she believes herself.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but and I think that's interesting. Some voters in New Hampshire, I don't know if you guys have ever talked to New Hampshire voters, because it's such a small state, a lot of the candidates will go, and a lot of people, oh yeah, I met Cruz, I met Bush, I met Clinton. They've personally met these candidates because it's really, you're fighting for every single vote. And then you ask them, who are you going to vote for? And since they have open primaries, it can be anyone. They're like, I don't know yet. I'm going to wait and see what my gut tells me. Or like, well, I love Bernie's policies, but when I shook his hand, he looked away a little too suddenly. Whereas Clinton, who I hear, I've never met her, I don't know if you guys have, I hear she's in person very warm, actually. So maybe on stage it's not there, but like when you meet her, she connects.
Bill had that too.
John.
They say.
Yeah, they say Bill.
Yeah.
But that is one of the biggest criticisms of Hillary, is that she doesn't seem trustworthy, which is almost kind of hilarious when it's against Trump.
Completely hilarious, not almost kind of hilarious. Completely outrageous, I think, honestly.
That she's not trustworthy. That people somehow see her.
Yeah,
as not
no, we see it. Our audience, when they react to anything we post about Hillary or Trump, it's the same thing. They go for her, the jugular, like, I don't trust her, and they call her names. But I'm like, at the same time, we have Donald Trump, who literally will say something to you right now. They'll fact check it and prove that he lied, and he'll pretend it never happened. How do you victimize only one of these people? I can't wrap my head around that.
I like that people are being critical of a politician for their trustworthiness. I just wish that they would be more generally critical.
Right.
Like you can identify that there's someone who doesn't stick with what they say they're going to do, or they receive donations and it seems like they then do what that interest wants, but a lot of politicians do. You should be able to recognize that in others. Yeah, she hasn't been able to develop a cult of personality. In some ways, if people do move over to her, it will probably represent something better, that she has made promises, and it'll be based on the policies. That's what I would hope. Of course, since she's going up against another guy with a dark mirror of a cult of personality, we might never know. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's better to vote based on the policies. I supported Bernie Sanders. I don't like her generally. But as of right now, I'm going to vote for her because of what it means for the Supreme Court and the environment and tax policy and things like that.
Oh, pish posh.
Well, I mean, the conversation.
Small things like the environment.
Go with the gut.
I think that's the problem, is that the conversation has so thoroughly shifted away from policy. Where, I mean, like, Trump doesn't have policy, beyond the wall, and his supporters don't care. And I wonder if this almost feels like maximum cult of personality at this point, where we've gone from, Kennedy, who had good ideas. Oh my God, even Abraham Lincoln had a cult of personality. Big guy, stovepipe hat, telling stories around the campfire kind of thing. Huge joker. He has this huge legacy.
Yeah.
And today we're looking at Trump, and it's almost like that's the brick wall that we've hit. And I wonder if we can get away from that, or maybe if Trump will get us away from that inadvertently, where we realize that this is what happens when you glorify a celebrity to the point of presidential nomination.
I mean, and that's interesting to see the media also, like, it's at a certain point, I think of around like 3 or 4 months ago, they were like, oh my goodness, what have we done? Oh no, oh, this is real. And they're like, wait, oh, we should fact check. And they started like even running headlines like, like Trump says that, Mexicans take 5 siestas a day, which is not true. And then they like have to write it or whatever he said. They felt obligated finally to have to fact check it. And again, back to like the importance of having the media can both build these people up, but also their role is to interrogate them, right? And to bring it back to policy.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think to bring it back to what I said before, I think the reason that we have that is because even though we can make mobile phones and we can send drones to Mars, we still haven't evolved that much. We're simple creatures. And I think that we develop cults of personality and vote for our political leadership based on those for the same reason that I cannot go to a supermarket and check out without seeing a magazine about which celebrity couple just had a baby.
Right.
We get too focused on individuals that we don't know, we're not going to ever know, they have nothing in common with us, and we should be able to look at the effect that they would have as a leader. And until we're able to move past these characteristics that don't have anything to do with legislating, I think that we're going to run into trouble.
Absolutely.
At least in 4 or 8 years when Donald Trump Jr. runs for presidency.
Didn't you see that? Like when I was watching him speak, I kept on hearing The Godfather, just like.
Well, with
like,
Trump in that doorway, that's almost the
my
perfect.
gosh. Freddie Mercury, no less.
Oh, right. I wonder if, the rise of the internet, it almost feels like that should have been the solution to this idea of a cult of personality, because now you're not just sitting and watching someone, like you're saying, it's quickly fact-checked. The policies are there. They're thrown on screen. We're able to... The candidates can't just sell themselves anymore because of how much outside free information there is. But somehow that doesn't seem to have made a difference.
Well, there's really competing pressures. I think you have the ability to fact check, but you have to have the curiosity and the drive to fact check. If you see a meme and it confirms everything you believe to be true, a picture or something, you can right click and you can Google search and you can see when it was originally posted. Like Melania Trump, she plagiarized from Michelle Obama. But Donald Trump did not send out a tweet that was exactly the same as what Barack said after Michelle Obama spoke, because I did the research, it wasn't actually true. You have to be willing to do that. And the internet provides all of these diverse sources of information, but the cult of personality relies on controlling a message, and there's so much information that you can and indeed have to choose selectively which to listen to. And so people can segregate themselves because they don't just have to get whatever news is available, they can get all a specific type of news, and there's so much of it now.
And to me, honestly, looking at Trump versus Sanders and the way that they played the media, it was very interesting. Like I said, and I will reiterate, covering Trump's one-liners, ridiculous, hateful, inane one-liners is much safer and gave them, mainstream networks much more fodder than covering Bernie Sanders' actual policies. But what did they do? Sanders knew he wasn't going to get the coverage Trump was going to get, and he's not about to go off on, Rosie O'Donnell just to get it.
Yeah.
So what'd he do? He just kept on saying the same thing over and over and over again, hoping that maybe if he got 3% or 2% of the coverage, maybe some of that would enter into America's consciousness.
Right.
So when people say, "Oh yeah, he repeated the same thing again," it's like, well, his odds,
I
the
think
odds
it
of
works
it.
for him though, don't you?
What?
I think a lot of kids really do love Bernie. So even if it came off as repetitive, I think his technique actually did work. Unfortunately, not enough that he's going to get the nomination. But again, our viewers love Bernie. He's by far the candidate that they connect with because they feel that he's authentic. He really cares about the issues. He talks about policies. So I guess it's encouraging to know that some people out there still do care about that because they love Bernie and people are still.
Right.
Is there any hope for him? Can he be VP? Can he overthrow Hillary somehow?
And like I said, with the anti-personality, the guy has got a huge personality, but again, he wasn't taking selfies, and
That's such a big criticism of Hillary, that she's always trying to pander for that cult of personality. Showing up on, Ellen, doing
the dab.
dancing. It's
painful.
It's kind of painful to watch because. Honestly, in my heart, I kind of do really want to like her, but it's really hard because it just comes at you in not a real way, not a genuine way, in the way that Bernie Sanders does.
Yeah.
I think you have to choose your battles. I think if Trump tried to go out and dance to Ellen, it would be grotesque. But he doesn't choose to do that. He instead tweets snarky shit, and people like it. And if you're trying to develop a cult of personality, there's a couple of different ways you can do it on Twitter. So you can try to project strength by just insulting people and attacking people. And some people will look at that and say, he's a big, strong man who's going to take care of us. Whereas Bernie, who is also incredibly popular on social media, he just put simple tweets expressing a value or an aspiration or a hope, knowing that people on social media want to spread that to show who they are. They want to affiliate themselves or with a better messaged version of their hopes and dreams. And so he got a huge amount of reach on Twitter by doing that. And I would say that that's a more positive form of it.
Yeah.
It's almost, I'd say, depressing that, somebody who really does seem like they're running a campaign of integrity, who actually has a message, who actually has policy, and is putting it in an easily digestible form, is still unable to get the coverage, now to get the nomination. Well, we'll see next week, but...
Right.
And it
ain't over, okay?
It's not over. I don't know.
It's
we
over.
got a week.
Guys.
It is
She
over.
just realized right now on this live stream.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I think it really says that we're not there yet. That legitimately America's not really ready for a candidate with pure integrity who isn't trying to become a cult of personality. Who Bernie has a great team behind him, but it doesn't seem like he was ever really reaching for that godlike status or hero worship. It seems like he kind of just came in there and said what he believes and supported by years and years of experience.
Well, he didn't have hashtag I'm with her.
Yeah,
He always made it about everybody.
So,
Fatal flaw.
I don't know. We'll have to see how cults of personalities originate over the next few elections. How that works out for Trump. And you guys have any final thoughts?
My final thought is that you're never going to get rid of the cult of personality, and it's about wielding. I think it is about. I mean, the '08 Obama campaign is a perfect example of something that was positive, like we were saying. Obviously, the dude is charismatic as all hell, and that helps. But it's about wielding it responsibly, and it's about everyone putting that personality into check, right? And actually, like you're saying, is this the person who can actually lead our country? And
Yeah, I think you just be willing to be critical of the people around you. It doesn't matter if it's someone you just had a first date with or if they're running for president. Nobody's perfect, and being willing to admit their flaws doesn't make them weaker. Everybody thinks that if they're willing to say, I don't agree with this person on Twitter, then I'm not pure. I'm not part of the crowd I want to be a part of. But I think love that's based on an actual understanding of what the thing is better than just a child's understanding. And a lot of people right now have a child's understanding and adoration of
Right.
Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, I do hope that people go out and vote, and before they vote, they do research both candidates and learn the things that they stand for, because that's what matters. But at the same time, I do personally hope that Hillary finds her swag. That's the best way that I could put it, because I don't think it's as difficult as we think it is. Remember a few weeks ago when she told Donald Trump to delete his Twitter account? That one tweet was huge. People were like, all right, Hillary, I see you being a person and stepping up. And I think if she just takes some more small steps like that, it'll go a really long way for her.
More tweets.
I think that's absolutely
More
true.
tweets.
Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
It's,
Thank you,
it's
Jules.
great to talk to all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you out there for watching, and make sure to tune in tomorrow at 4 p.m. because we'll have another live stream. And subscribe to Seeker Daily. Thanks for watching.